What's up, y'all? Thank you for tuning in once again to the Unofficial Therapy Podcast. This is Chris Kane, and I'm happy to have you guys with me. Today's podcast is an interesting one because it will sound kind of political on the surface, but it's not really meant to be. You guys know I don't get into the politics and religion and all that stuff just because, why? Who needs that smoke? Who needs to stir up those feelings? From what I can tell, people feel what they feel, regardless of what facts or what other positions you bring forward. So you could be like, oh, but you said, it doesn't matter. They feel what they feel. So I'm referencing this because it was part of a conversation I was having a couple weeks ago with a friend, and it was about the George Bush, I guess not Jr., could have different middle names, but the second Bush and John Kerry's campaign. And this is after we already went to war, and, you know, the sentiment around Bush was a little bit kind of whatever. But John Kerry apparently was an awful candidate. But I remember where things really turned is when they had the soundbite of him saying, I actually voted for the war before I voted against it. And then they just kept running it like on the loop, saying essentially he's indecisive and he's, you know, wishy-washy on stuff. But then they coined the term flip-flopper. And that just, it is so childish to call somebody a flip-flopper. Hey, man, you're a flip-flopper. No, I'm not. Like, it's a childish thing to, like, say to somebody. But for some reason, that resonated, man. Like, voters were like, dude, this guy's a flip-flopper. He voted for something and voted against it. And nothing John Kerry could do can get past it. And to be fair, he wasn't particularly charismatic. And, you know, he kind of, like lurched a little bit. You know what I'm saying? He couldn't talk his way out of it. He didn't have enough swag to do that. But that it stayed with him. It was more like, even if ultimately people thought, you know, we probably shouldn't go to war, and that's ultimately where he got with his decision, is the fact that he voted for it first. It's the fact that you flip-flopped to the right solution. We would have preferred if you were just wrong and say, yeah, I voted for it, now, you know, attack me. And the idea of being a flip-flopper and what that perception is got me on this topic of, can we change our minds and evolve, or is that not allowed anymore? I'm not sure. I mean, this is, you know, putting this out there to the people, but I mean, that was essentially John Kerry's. He became Secretary of State eventually, but still, like, he never was really thought of in any like real glowing terms post that. But think about people in your own life. Like, think about people who you knew like in high school or something, and they were a certain person, and now they're out in the world living their life, and you still see them as that person in high school. They've obviously, you know, gotten past that. They're living jobs and their families and all that good stuff. But there's something about it that you can't dismiss it from. It's almost like, you know how actors not get typecast, but they become iconic for a role. So someone like Alfonso Ribeiro or Carlton on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, right? Like, ever since that show ended, people see him as Carlton. Now, that show ended in what, 95? This is almost 20 years later. You know what I'm saying? It's like, dude, that show was more than that. About 23 years later. Wow. Long time ago, that show ended. A couple decades. Since then, Will Smith's made probably a couple billion in the box office. But he's still seen as Carlton. He still does the dance from time to time on TV because people still want it. Now, I'm sure that's keeping him on some level financially, you know, afloat. I know he has a TV show. He's a talk show guy. But, like, he's that dude. He's still the Carlton guy. And I'm sure on some level he's like, dude, I'm like 50. I'm Alfonso. I have a family. I have kids. I'm a dude. I sing. I dance, not just the Carlton dance. I'm a person. But y'all still see me as Carlton. And I guess that's better than being unknown. I don't know if anyone talks about like Hillary or Tatiana Ali or the rest of those people, but it's like, can I not be this dude for the rest of my life? Am I going to be like Webster was Webster forever? And it's like, I'm a person. I'm a real person. And in real life, we've seen kind of a backlash recently about people posting things as children, or at least younger people. And then, you know, 10, 15, 20 years later, it gets resurfaced, and there's people are like, oh, you're that person. You're that person who posted that at 16, so you're obviously still that person now at 38. And it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. At 16, I was, you know, still growing peach fuzz on top of my lip and thinking about prom. At 38, I'm thinking about, you know, retirement plans and like my 401k and my family and my kids' college fund and all that. Like, we're obviously not the same people, but the idea that at some point you were that person, and so you are that person, and so we have to like see you as that. I even in the face of reason seems unreasonable. And this is not to defend any one particular person, because I think pretty much down the line, this happens on all political spectrums. It happens on all race relations. It happens across the board. It's, especially now, if you did anything from 95 to now, since the internet really has kind of been around, then it's way worse, because there's, video, there's YouTube, there's, shareable clips of it. Some things happened in the 70s and 60s that we don't have record of. It's just people talking about it. But if people can see, oh, this is him in 98 saying, hey, man, my Mexican nurse was surprisingly good. And it's like, what are you trying to say, man? Like, and it's just like, oh, well, I had never seen one before, and I was 20 when I said that, and now I'm 40-something. And it just doesn't go away. It's just something you always have to deal with. And I'm wondering, is this just a reality of life going forward? Is there ever a time that you can be young and dumb and then evolve and be a more civilized person? I've seen some people come through, actually. Ray Lewis, easy example. Ray Lewis on trial for murder in like 2000. Won a Super Bowl, won league MVP, all that stuff. 20 years later, Hall of Fame. We see him as like, or some people in that community see him as like a pillar of what Baltimore is and this and that. People don't even talk about the murder anymore, or even the trial. And so he's somehow beat the odds. I don't know how he did it. He has good PR people. And for pretty much 2 decades, he's been working to be literally the polar opposite of what he was on trial for. But at some point, let's say Ray Lewis, something happens to him. Like, let's say he gets some kind of divorce, or another case gets put on him. Immediately, they're going to catapult all the way back to 2000. Well, he does have a history of this. Remember back in 2000 on a murder trial? And it's like, yeah, and then he went 20 years doing absolutely nothing. But if he gets a DUI, a parking ticket, and he gets put in the news, that's what they're going to do, though. I believe so. I can't prove it. But I believe they would go back and be like, well, he has some questionable decisions. You guys remember the murder trial, right? And it's like, what about in 2010 when you gave him, like, Walter Payton Man of the Year or whatever? You say he was the face of the franchise, face of the city. We didn't disregard all that stuff because he had I don't know. I'm not really a tweeter. People know I don't get Twitter, and maybe that's like an old thing to say. Like, I don't get the Twitter. I don't understand the idea of. I don't understand the idea of it. I guess I'm just posting 180 characters of what I feel. Not nearly enough words to say what I want to say, but any more words would be annoying to look at. So I'm just going to put some abbreviated version of what I want to say out to the world. Obviously not fully contextualized. It's obviously going to be misconstrued by a number of people. And then I got to put a string of 6 other tweets out to defend the first one. I don't get it. I guess some of y'all are probably avid tweeters and you want to get re-tagged and reposted by the person you're talking to. I get it. I'm sure there's some value in that. I personally don't get it. I think I did Twitter for like a week or two. I still have one linked to like my Facebook, but I literally just post my Facebook post on Twitter. I never go to Twitter. I don't even know what my sign-in is to just go to Twitter. And so people are like, man, did you see those tweets last night? Man, Kanye had 40 tweets. And I'm like, he had 40 tweets? And I don't even understand what that is. It's just, you could have put one YouTube video out of you just talking while you sitting in front of your computer in 40 different. I don't know. So the idea that Twitter is ruining people's careers and lives, because when it first came out, people just wanted to jump on there and be the first to post something incendiary and get people going. I don't get. But I know that if you are trying to be something in the world, you better eradicate that Twitter immediately, or at the very least have that purged. But then again, people take screenshots of stuff and you try to delete it, and it's like, well, in 2004, you said harumph. And I don't even know if Twitter was around back then, but still, that's kind of the idea of it. It's like, I think, I mentioned this on a previous podcast, I think people want to be right about everything. I think that's just from children to now. We just want to be right. And the idea of admitting you're wrong in any instance somehow seems weak. As somehow it flies in the face of what reason is. Like, yeah, I felt something, and then I found out, like, this is a dumb example, but some of you appreciate this. So, I'm from Florida. Everybody knows that. Gainesville, Jacksonville, a lot of good stuff. We have a city in Florida called Kissimmee, and it's like outside of Orlando or whatever. But as a kid, I just looked at the way it was spelled, and I used to call it Kissimmee because it's Kissi, right? So I was, oh, Kissimmee, yeah, I went there, and someone's like, oh, you went to Kissimmee? And they didn't say it like, you're wrong, you're a jerk. It was just like, I had never heard it said properly. And now, if I had just doubled down and kept saying Kissimmee, like, oh, I'm a kid, novelty, I'm going to say the word wrong. Like, at a certain point, I would have been an adult saying Kissimmee, and people are like, dude, it's Kissimmee, what are you doing? You live here. And I just changed on the fly. I just said it right from that day forward because I had heard it said the right way, but I didn't know it was wrong. And it's no one knows everything. So it's okay to be wrong about some things. I don't know. Someone posted this a couple of days ago. I don't know who it was. I just scrolled through it. And it said, if I'm wrong or ignorant about something, educate me. Don't berate me or something. Maybe I'm paraphrasing that improperly, but I think that sentiment was, I never heard it said so succinctly. It was beautiful. It was like, sometimes people are wrong and they don't know they're wrong. It's just pure ignorance. And the idea that I'm going to show you what's right, can you just accept that was objectively right? I don't mean like, again, the political, like religious stuff, because there's nothing objective about it. But things that like, I don't know, like history. Oh, so-and-so happened in 1936. Actually, it was in 38. Like, we have empirical evidence. This is when it happened. The idea that I can't be like, well, technically, if you really, like, just, all right, cool, it's in 38. Let's move forward. It doesn't have to be an argument. You know, I'm not dumb because I didn't know this one little factoid. And I think the idea that, like, I've heard this from a lot of people, and it's really these two examples. It's a leopard can't change his spots, and you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Those, to me, are kind of one and the same in the sense that they absolve the person of trying to change behavior or change who they are. They're just ways to get by. Listen, this is who I am. You heard somebody say that? Hey, man, you know, I know it's wrong, but it's just who I am, man. And it's like, but is it? Like, that's the most you can't do any better. That's just who you are. Oh, okay. It's like I don't understand. It's like, I just who I am, man. I just, it doesn't make like, you're an adult person. What do you mean that's just who you are? Yeah, if you're 95, you may not learn how to like whip or nay or something because maybe your hips don't work. Yeah, I get it. That makes sense. But the idea that I grew up in the South or whatever, and you know, maybe you grew up around some not so savory people, but then you get exposed to the world. And you start seeing that maybe the things that he taught me as a kid are not the way the world is. But he's like, well, I know I got a lot more information in. I know a lot of people outside of my race who are cool, but hey, I was raised in Alabama. This is where it's how I live my life. I'm just who I am. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's just, I think we got to be better. Or at least you should be. Or at least not take that easy route out. The idea that I'm just going to just let this ride. It's disappointing. Plenty of things changes. It's not always knowledge. We don't always just grow up. Some people never grow up. And that's actually endearing sometimes. Just, you know, super old childish people. It's kind of endearing sometimes. But a lot of things can grow you. Like tragedy as a kid can grow you. I think having my grandmother like pass away, who lived with me when I was in high school, grew me. I wasn't trying to grow. I was like 15. I was trying to live, just, you know, trying to hold girls' hands and learn like pre-calculus and all that stuff. Like I was trying to live my life, and then that happened, and all of a sudden it's like, well, you kind of got to run the house when Dad's on the road. You got to learn how to cook. You got to learn how to take after yourself. You can't be out here in these streets, even though, technically you could be because there's no one to stop you. But that was an instantaneous kind of situation. It went from, hey, grandma, what's for dinner to, oh, what's for dinner is what I cook. And that happened overnight. So had you met me 6 months prior and you was like, oh man, Chris is immature. He's still at home getting grandma's good cooking, this and that. Man, you just like a little kid. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, sorry guys, I can't go out. I have to go to the grocery store, get some food for the house. And it's like, what do you mean? You got to go? Like, I got to do it. That responsibility fell to me now. That instantaneously grew me against my will, because I don't know if people tend to want to grow naturally, but that kind of thing can happen. Tragedies happen all the time. Sometimes things like, I don't know, random children. People don't always plan on getting pregnant, and then you can be just living your life. I think that's kind of what happened to my dad on some level, but you're just living your life. You kind of out here in the streets doing ga. Then you get that phone call. Hey, I'm late. I think I'm pregnant. Then you take the test and it's like, I'm pregnant now and I'm keeping a baby. And it's like all that, hey, y'all want to go, I'll say shoot some dice. I don't know what year this is. Hey man, y'all want to go down to the shooting range or go to the court and this and that? It's like, oh, I got a kid coming in like 8 months. Am I prepared? Do we have materials, crib? Do I need to move from this neighborhood? And all of a sudden, immediately you're a different person. You have to grow up. You got to fend for somebody else. It's like, do I have the type of job that I can provide like I need to? I don't know. And you start making and asking those questions that you probably never even thought of asking for real. Because why would you? There's no reason for you to grow and be better than what you were at that time. And immediately you are. Marriage is another thing. I know there are a lot of people who get married who were solo people before, very independent. I'm used to my space, used to things my way, which is not a problem. If you're single and you're in let's say the business world, I think being self-sufficient and self-driven and motivated is probably the best thing for a business. But then all of a sudden you're married and you live with somebody and you got to assimilate their life into your life and their quirks and maybe even culture into yours. And it's different because you've been a solo, basketball player type person out there. And all of a sudden it's like, I got to be more inclusive and more team oriented. And then that takes time. There's probably some friction there where it's like, all right, we got to do things, and it's like, actually that's not how I operate. And now y'all got to come together. And so you have to start growing and learning how to compromise for the sake of the relationship. If not, you're probably going to be single again. And you can have things the way you want them, but you won't be married, right? So the idea that people don't change or people can't change, or I don't even know what the justification for such a statement is. People change all the time. If I meet you at age 20 and I meet you at age 40 and you're the same person, I would almost think you tried actively not to change. Because from 20 to 40, so much life happens. I'm not 40 at all. I'm not even close. I'm literally halfway between those two. But just from 20 to 30, I look back on my Facebook and see just the beard styles I had. I'm like, I tried to do a chin strap for like a year. What was I doing? Do better. I got to check myself. And I see some of the young ladies at the parties and stuff. And I was like, I tried to holler at that chick for like 4 months. And now I'm looking at her, I'm like, she was only a little bit cute, right? Like, and then at my age now, like, I don't have the energy to do that kind of legwork unless I feel like it's worth it or whatever. And just in that 10 years, I changed a tremendous amount. I can only imagine from 30 to 40 what it'll be. So just having responsibilities and bills changes you. The idea that, oh man, I want to just spend this money on a bunch of shoes, and then you realize, oh man, my car registration is due. I got to renew my insurance. Like these kind of things these are adult statements. They change you. You deal with the workforce. You deal with having a boss who you probably don't like in a lot of cases, and how to navigate that without getting fired or sent to human resources. All these things for 2 decades and you're the same person. Like, I know you guys got the point probably like 10 minutes ago, but I hear this a lot. I see it a lot on TV. I hear it a lot in the media. And people say what they say and they stand on it. And I don't think it gets challenged enough because I think it's an easily refutable point that people don't change or people are who they are. On some level, I do think there's core values a person probably has that keeps you. You can't completely change, but there has to be something to kind of tether you to what you are, to your soul or whatever. But the idea that you can't be a nicer person, you can't be more forgiving, you can't be more compromising, you can't get a little softer with age and with children and life experiences. Tragedy doesn't make you appreciate things more, really. Same person. Based on what? Like, I posted something on Instagram maybe a couple days ago on my story, and it's a quote that I guess it's a mantra. I live by it on some level, and it's simple. It's in every moment I'm evolving, and that can mean a lot of different things. I mean, obviously not like doing some like Pokemon evolution or whatever, but it's like you just keep experiencing and learning new things, and then it keeps changing you and altering kind of who you are, but like subtly. Things that used to make you go, you're like, and then things you used to not care about, you care a lot more for. And you start meeting new people, and new people bring new experiences, and new experiences create new synapses and patterns in your brain, and it just keeps going. And I mean, I've read a lot of articles and seen research that pretty much says once you stop learning and stop doing mentally stimulating activities, that's when people start dying. People just start fading away. It makes perfect sense. You don't have anything making you change and grow and be better, and so you just start eroding. So in every moment I'm evolving to try to keep what I have strong. I think evolving is important as a person for a number of reasons. I think it's good for society at large to have people who, I don't believe in the totality of the progressive movement or whatever, 'cause I think it's just an excuse for people to get what they want. But the idea that people are trying to make themselves better and they're trying to work on flaws, I think is a good thing. I don't know how that could be a bad thing. We all had job interviews where they say, "What's your greatest strength?" And we know that immediately. Well, I just work too darn hard, which is what they used to say back in the day. But now it's pretty much like I'm a workaholic, or I have an issue sometimes taking commands because I want to be the boss, and we have all these different things. But then when they ask you your greatest weakness, it typically like there's that pause and this. I don't know how to answer this question. I want to put my weaknesses out there, but really the weaknesses are really what define what kind of leader you are. If you have an issue with authority as a weakness, and we're putting you in a subordinate position, then we probably won't hire you because you can't deal with authority. If your weakness is on some level self-confidence, that's maybe something we can cultivate and build up. Like, I'm a good employee, but I don't know if I always feel strong in my work. And it's like, okay, cool, then let's go there. And as you keep working on those weaknesses, they may always be weaker than what your strengths are, but they don't have to be as detrimental. Like, I'm going to go football. Don't be the Kansas City Chiefs. You have the greatest offense in the league and the worst defense in the league, and then be like, well, we can score a lot of points. Yeah, what happens if you score slightly less points? You lose and don't go to the Super Bowl. Yeah, you don't get off the field on 3rd and 10 repeatedly. 4th and 9, you don't get off the field. You just keep getting gutted because you have a bad defense. Best offense, MVP on offense, quarterback, all that good stuff. You were so deficient on defense. That didn't matter how good your offense was. The Patriots' offense was ranked 4th in the league? Their defense was 20th. So, yeah, they're not the best at either, but their defense isn't so bad that they can't compensate. You can't have your weaknesses be literally the polar opposite of what your strengths are. And that's where evolution comes in. You just work on yourself and try to make yourself a better person. And you may always have a little bit of a temper, right? I just a lot of that in my family. But you don't have to be the person that goes off at every dinner party. You can't be the person at church throwing hands, good hands out to the deacons and stuff. You can't be that person. You can go in the car and vent, curse people out, even get on the phone. That's fine. But we gotta be better people. And I think we have to give people the credit for trying to be better people. I understand the results of what they are. Sometimes like, there's a saying that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? Sometimes you try to do a good thing and it works out poorly. But I think the attempt at goodness should be commended because I don't want to deter the behavior. I don't want to stop someone from trying to do better. If you failed at trying to do better this first time, all right, cool. It didn't quite work out for you. Fair. Keep trying. Maybe it'll work out next time. Maybe you'll fail a few more times. But at some point, when you keep trying to do good, I think good happens. And I think people who are trying to do good and trying to do better should be fostered to keep doing that. Because if we all try and do better, or try and do good, then I think eventually good things will happen. Thank you guys once again for tuning in. As always, post, tag, repost, tweet. I won't see it if it's on Twitter, but somebody will. And hopefully someone can get something from this. People who are maybe a little bit more on the judgy side can maybe get off their horse a little bit. And we can, as a unit, kind of come together and at least admit that people can sometimes change and be better people later in life. And hopefully stop judging each other so harshly. Anyway, you guys have a great week. I'll talk to you next time. Deuces.